And we've settled for it. Now, Robert, I bought the lie. Let me tell you some areas I bought the lie in. Natural appetite. I'm tall. I can perhaps carry 20 or 30 pounds and maybe just be a little paunch, not a big deal. I don't have a paunch. I'm strapped up to keep from losing pants that have just been tailored again. I'm embarrassed to pull my belt up because it wads up on both sides. You say, why? Because for years God said, James, your appetite's controlling you. You're not controlling it. Sugar's bigger than you. Chocolate's bigger than you. I said, no big deal. God, everybody's got a few issues. I got some issues. It's no big deal. Have you ever tasted chocolate? How about almond toffee? How about chocolate truffles? How about homemade blueberry? God said, it's got you. For years, I said, well, I know I ought to be having a little more exercise, Lord, but I got a bad hip. God said, I told you, get up and get moving, boy. You're sitting on your butt. You're a couch potato, and you look like one. Now, don't any of you get to say, well, He's getting on me because I'm big. You're going to see something here in just a minute. Now, don't you miss this. When God sheds His light on a weed in His garden, you better take it real serious. You better take it real serious. Do you want to know one of the biggest battles they had with me when they're trying to get me over staff? I had become a borderline and almost full-blown diabetic. Do you want to know when the diabetes hit? 2 weeks before the surgery. 5 weeks before staff exploded. I'm hooked up to an IV to do one thing, keep giving me insulin to keep me from going in orbit. So the natural body that God gave me to fight infection could get a little relief. Because I disregarded the weed in my life. God said, your teeth, your appetite, your mouth, your cravings in control of you, not me. Now I want to tell you something. That's what God put light on in my life. I don't know what He's putting light on in your life, but here's what He told me. We better get just as concerned about the weed as He is. Because it's more serious than we comprehend. And its potential to lead to problems is really serious. Did you know that any noxious weed, any potential briar in the garden of God, did you know that it has the explosive potential, the tornadic impact potential of a staph infection or an uncontrollable whirlwind? Ask Tiger Woods. Ask the $1 billion man. Ask the man that had everything. And let me just go ahead and say it, Tiger. I sat in front of your house. I prayed for you, and I've never stopped. You are truly the most gifted athlete that I have ever had the privilege and joy of watching. But Tiger, not all the marketing experts in the world, not all the isms in the world can help you. There's but one hope for the help you need. The same hope we all have, and that is the blessed hope. It is Jesus Christ, the living Lord, not a religious story, not some false traditional hope, but a living Lord. I love you, man, with all my heart. I love you. You are as important to God as any visible person. That weed was not big to me. There were other weeds. I said, I'm just a normal man. Sometimes I'm unduly attracted in ways I shouldn't be. I'm captivated by beauty. It's not healthy. God said that's not right. You can notice, but don't be captured, even in your thoughts, even for a little while. I tolerated that. I tolerated it. My wife is sitting here. Betty, I've only had one interruption in the last weeks with this continual flow of conversation. And that was a few days before Christmas until a few days after Christmas. Don't you miss this. Suddenly, God just seemed to quit talking to me a lot. I would pick my Bible up and read a few verses and tell Him how much I loved Him, and suddenly He would just say, put it down. And for 5 or 6 days, all I did is focus on her. And you know what God told me this weekend? He said, I didn't speak to you in a very direct and conversational way for a very important reason. I want you to understand that for you to give her your undivided attention and focus is loving me with all your heart, because I want you to love your wife like Christ loves the church. And I want you to give her your undivided attention. And I'm telling you, every minister in the country needs to hear that. And every person in this church needs to hear that. Your family needs that attention. Now, by the way, just in case some of you ladies are beginning to dismiss yourself from a real running conversation with God because you say you're busy, and I got school stuff, let me tell you, you know when God talks to me the most clearly? When I'm the busiest. I'm telling you, I can be busy, and He is talking to me. So you don't need to think for one moment because you're busy doing the right things, those right things are righteous things. You don't receive condemnation from that liar. You just receive the truth and build on it. Let me tell you why I tolerated the weeds in the garden of God. I was comfortable. And I was very fruitful. I had a very fruitful garden. And I was fruitful because of a gift, a supernatural gift to communicate. And I was fruitful because I've surrounded myself with wise counselors. And I let fruitfulness and I let comfort cause me to walk out in the garden and look at all the fruit and think the weed was not very significant. You know what I found out about weeds, Robert? Some of the most painful weeds have beautiful blossoms. You're a Texas boy. You know bull nettle? Bull nettle has a beautiful flower. If you know the Colorado thistle, it's got a beautiful purple blossom. Beautiful. I've watched children go over and touch them one time. I've watched our little puppy touch them one time. You go over and touch bull nettle, you will never want to touch it again. Never. Never. I had that in the garden of God, and I tolerated it. Here's where I just sort of need to get right down beside you. Here's where I just sort of need to get right down on the floor and pull every one of you up real close. Don't live there. I've counseled with the famous preachers you've watched crash. I've tried to pick up the lives of the fruitful and the comfortable when they didn't recognize what I didn't recognize. And see, God's taught me a lot. But I didn't notice. Let me help you with something. You don't have to sin to be under attack. Roses don't sin. They're one of the most vulnerable flowers you'll ever work with. Keep an eye on them. Spider mite, black spot, blight, mold, and they're just sitting there blooming. So you got to understand that no matter how beautifully you bloom, no matter how fruitful you are, you're going to be under attack. That's why you need the watch care not only of the father, but you need the watch care of the family. And that's why you need the fellowship in the family. Do you know where a river flows when it's out of its banks? To the areas of least resistance. And you know where it does its greatest work? In the most fertile soil. And do you know if that fertile soil is not under the watch care of the farmer and the husbandman, it'll grow weeds like no field in the county. An abandoned, cultivated field will grow more weeds than you ever imagined. That's why we need each other. That's why we need a fellowship. That's why I need these men to keep me in check.